Welcome to Book It, a mini review of a hot new book title. I'm your host, Joe Pizzo. Usually we are featuring books targeted to middle school readers. However, today's featured book may be more appropriate for high school and university readers, even though the main character is only 12. Today's featured book is Our Missing Hearts by Celeste, a book published in 2022. Eng is the author of 3 acclaimed novels, Everything I Never Told You, Little Fires Everywhere, and Our Missing Hearts. She has won multiple awards for her books. According to CelesteEng.com, the author's website, her first novel, Everything I Never Told You, 2014, was a New York Times bestseller, a New York Times Notable Book of 2014, Amazon's #1 Best Book of 2014, and named a Best Book of the Year by over a dozen publications. Everything I Never Told You was also the winner of the Massachusetts Book Award, the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature, and the ALA's Alex Award. It has been translated into over 30 languages and is being adapted for the screen. Her second novel, Little Fires Everywhere, in 2017, was a #1 New York Times bestseller, a #1 Indie Next bestseller, and Amazon's Best Fiction Book of 2017. It was named a Best Book of the Year by over 25 publications, the winner of the Ohio Anna Award and the Goodreads Reader's Choice Award 2017 in fiction, and has spent over a year on the New York Times bestseller list. Little Fires Everywhere has been published abroad in more than 30 languages and has been adapted as a limited series on Hulu, starring Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington. Her third novel, Our Missing Hearts, was published in October 2022 in the US, Canada, and the UK, and was an instant New York Times bestseller. Eng graduated from Harvard University and received a Master of Fine Arts degree from the University of Michigan. Eng's website also tells us that she has won the Pushcart Prize, a fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and other honors. Our Missing Hearts is a dystopian novel based on the belief that bystanders can indeed make a difference. Eng uses past and current actual events to inspire this book. She is a strong opponent of many countries' practices of removing children as a means of political control. Let's look at the inside cover of the book for a thorough overview. 12-year-old Bird Gardner lives a quiet existence with his loving but broken father, a former linguist who now shelves books in a university library. Bird knows to not ask too many questions, stand out too much, or stray too far. For a decade, their lives have been governed by laws written to preserve American culture in the wake of years of economic instability and violence. To keep the peace and restore prosperity, the authorities are now allowed to relocate children of dissidents, especially those of Asian origin, and libraries have been forced to remove books seen as unpatriotic, including the work of Bird's mother, Margaret, a Chinese-American poet who left the family when he was 9 years old. Bird has grown up disavowing his mother and her poems. He doesn't know her work or what happened to her, and he knows he shouldn't wonder. But when he receives a mysterious letter containing only a cryptic drawing, he is pulled into a quest to find her. His journey will take him back to the many folk tales she poured into his head as a child, through the ranks of an underground network of librarians, into the lives of the children who have been taken, and finally to New York City, where an act of defiance may be the beginning of much-needed change. Our Missing Hearts is an old story made new, of the ways supposedly civilized communities can ignore the most searing injustice. It's a story about the power and limitations of art to create change, the lessons and legacies we pass on to our children, and how any of us can survive a broken world with our hearts intact. Now let's hear an excerpt from the novel that serves to highlight the totalitarian nature of the government being portrayed. They came at night. That's what Sadie said. After dinner time. She'd just taken a shower and was swathed in a towel when the doorbell rang. Her mother was combing Sadie's hair, which was thick and curly and prone to tangles, and downstairs they heard her father shouting. Then the voices of strangers. A man. Two men. Sadie's mother had lifted a section of hair in one hand and gently worked the comb through it. And this is what Sadie remembered most clearly. A stray drop of water trickling down the back of her neck. Her mother's steady hand as she coaxed out the knots. She didn't shake, Sadie said, her voice proud. Not one tiny bit. Maybe she didn't know what was happening, Bert said. Sadie shook her head. She knew, she said. Her mother wrapped her arms around her, pressed her lips to Sadie's forehead. Sadie hadn't understood yet what was going on, but dread seeped into her like a chill against her damp skin. She leaned against her mother, burrowed her face into the soft crook of her mother's neck so hard she couldn't breathe. Don't forget us, okay? Her mother had said, and Sadie was still confused when the bathroom door opened. A man in a police uniform. Sadie's father was still shouting downstairs. There were 4 officers, it turned out. 2 stayed with her father downstairs, and 1 stayed with her mother upstairs, and 1 stood guard outside Sadie's room while she got dressed. Unsure what to do, she put on her rainbow-striped pajamas as if she were simply going to bed like any other day. Let her go back and change, her mother had said when Sadie came out into the hallway. At least let me braid her hair. But the man in the hallway shook his head. From now on, he said, she's not your responsibility anymore. Oh, the Oprah magazine calls our missing hearts, quote, cleverly crafted, emotionally perceptive, unquote, while the New York Times Book Review calls the novel, quote, a deep, heartfelt portrait of a family struggling with its place in history, unquote. Kirkus Reviews states, quote, taut and terrifying, Eng's cautionary tale transports us into an American tomorrow that is all too easy to imagine, and persuasively posits that the antidotes to fear and suspicion are empathy and love, unquote. If this type of novel interests you, then Eng's dystopian Our Missing Hearts is one both for your most mature readers and for you as well. For Book It, a mini review of a hot new book title for your readers, I'm your host, Joe Pizzo. Have a wonderful day.